Welcome back. Well, here we are. This is Management 291, Strategic Management. You're taking me either on an online class, a blended class, or a face-to-face class. I'm going to cut this short and go forward. You're taking this at community college. You have my concept maps. A lot of students utilize this as a intro to the course because it's a traditional lecture, just to know what to look out for. Others use this as a capstone after the class is finished. This chapter is finished as a review of what they missed. So anyway, print it out. You've got the concept maps to the second tier. You add in with your own writing additional. So when you're reading the chapters, the book is excellent. I got it back here. The software that comes with this book helps you learn to bring it from your short-term to your long-term memory. All right, so let's go forward. This is a long chapter. I try to keep my lectures underneath a half an hour. This one's going to be a little bit pushy. I'm going to try to go a little bit faster, which I can. And those of you taking me a face-to-face class, you know I talk fast. I'm recording this early in the morning, so I'm energetic. Had my 8 hours of sleep, or what they say, 7 to 8 hours for my age. Most of you should be getting at least 9 or 10 hours of sleep to keep your body recharged. All right, so let's go on, and that ties in with the wellness program. So what are we going to be covering? Nature of strategic implementation, annual objectives. Remember, this is a strategic class. We're looking long term in the next 2 to 5 years. How are you going to turn the company around? And this one's implementing the strategies. We did everything else that we've done in the other chapters. Now how you're actually going to implement the strategies that your organization came up. Different types of resources, how to manage conflict. Everyone doesn't want to change. Some people like to, oh, let's do it the way we always done it. Why do we have to change? Remember, that's top management makes those decisions because they see the direction of the company because of internal forces or mostly external forces that's directing the organization to another realm of their existence, for lack of better words, a learning organization, because that's what they need for survival going in the future. And same thing with employees. They have to understand that. Functional structure, divisional structure, there's a real basic from my intro to business classes. Strategic business unit, every division is a standalone unit. Some of you have taken me for entrepreneur. I'll tell you, you may not want to be an entrepreneur, but if you're a manager, you're basically an entrepreneur. You're your own business owner only within the organization, what we call a business strategic business unit. Matrix structures, we've discussed that before if you had in other chapters. And the reason I go lightly on this, because this is a capstone class. This is strategic management. You already had marketing, advertising, business. A lot of the other classes, finance, even with myself, organizational behavior, consumer. So now you're basically taking all this, and now I've got all this knowledge. How do I change the organization going forward? Is this course here, okay? So as soon as you know some of this, at least the general information. Okay, strategic production operation, managing resistance. They want to use 3 steps. Some different courses I teach, there's like 7 different steps. How do I unfreeze and refreeze? Culture is basically a habit. They say after 30, 40 days, you create a habit. So it takes 30, 40. Usually takes longer to break a habit in 30, 40 days. But once you break it, then it's you have control over it. And same with culture. We do things one way, always the same way. We get complacent. We get used to this. All right. Let's see. And then once you have the strategic, here's the things, strategies to bring in linking performance to pay to the strategy, balancing work and life and family. A lot of organizations are basically doing that. It's because it makes sense. You can't burn out your employees because they'll leave you, or they're not effective because they're overstressed. You want to, it's a balance, okay? Harder as you get up to the higher management because more is expected of you. You have the higher pay. You have more individuals, not only in a company looking for your leadership, but also your family. So it's kind of it's attainable, but it has to be, you have to focus on that. And creating a strategic a strategy supportive culture. How do you help people make those changes? Monitoring social media, like it or not. And we have Facebook driven, really monitoring, know everything about us. But a lot of companies do look at that to see, well, remember, the company has to look at its brand. The company has to look at its outside people, how they view the company. So if I have someone bashing the company, that I'm saying, hey, we're really environmentalists, and I'm not talking about whistleblowers. They're just upset with me, and they just, this company's a bunch of BS, whatever. Hey, you're out of the job. What the heck? You got to represent. Bash somebody else. Don't bash the company that's feeding you. My word of advice, and how do I handle those employees that do bash the organization. I'm not talking because we're doing something wrong. It's just that they're upset with me, my policy or something, and they're out there in the social media and they have a lot of followers. Follow them out the door. My words of advice. Remember, you got to also look at the political arena within an organization. Okay, and then corporate wellness program is, you know what I mean, and caution of hiring rivals. So let's go into this real quickly. I'm going to move along. I'll just open up a lot of these. Okay, so now we've got this. Now I'm going to do this in 150. And remember, I always do this live. I do a very little record. I think I'll do 200. Excuse me. So you could see, and then I'll bring it back down to 100. A lot of information. Okay, the graph is real easy. Look at this. It tells. This is from another book. And here's the author's source, and it basically develop the mission, generate, implement is where we're at in here, and then the different strategies we'll be talking about here and measure. Another author, but this author in your book that you have back in here, they basically use that. So I'm just refreshing it. We discussed that graph in detail either in our discussion board online or in the class. And remember, sometimes I may not be your instructor teaching this course, but your other instructors said, hey, you want to supplement another, whenever you buy a supplement book from whoever the instructor did, the other individual basically just put it in his or her own words. Because if you don't understand the authors, and then I'm repeating verbatim what they said, I still don't understand it. So it's usually another author that looks at the book and puts it down in his perspective and another point of view. It's still looking at the same goals and same objectives, but using the different terminology for understanding. Okay, so nature of strategical implementation. You have the formula. The formula. It's positioning forces behind the action. Why are we doing this? Focuses on effectiveness. You have to remember, business is efficiency and effectiveness. I can be efficient but not effective. And when I do efficient effectiveness, does it have the quality? Do I make it everything time? So both of those two. So if you're looking as a strategic, you have to look at the company's efficient and effective, primarily on intellectual process. So that's your people, individuals. The strategy is the computers. A lot of software tells me here's the probability this will be successful, but it's still the champion. Who's going to make it happen? Who's going to convince the workforce? Who's going to change the culture? Who understands the culture to a point? Facebook knows a lot about a lot of us that we found out, families, everything else, and they're selling that data, which is another issue you have to look at. How much of that data is, just people want to just chime off and say, hey, I'm the best and everything else, blah, blah, blah. And it's not really factual. Some people are, some do. Some use this as a platform to get more publicity or exposure or put their good side on. So you have to look at Facebook or social media in that content when you're evaluating it. As long as they're not bashing companies or your company you're hiring them or the product that you're hiring them. You don't want someone hiring me if I'm doing oil and then and he or she's an environmentalist against the oil drilling. Not too good here. You know what I'm talking about? That wouldn't be the person I want to be working with in my company. Because it does not, it's not discrimination. It just doesn't fit the culture. Because you're changing the culture other than the way I want to control the culture as an organization. Requires good and intuitive and analytical. So you have to have both the right and the left side of the brain. The right side is basically creative, intuitive. Don't use intuitive. You got to have facts. Sometimes you need that gut feeling. That's all intuition is. Oh man, this doesn't feel right. Remember how many times you go in there? All right, so utilize. I try to develop that as a middle manager. Doesn't mean you go on it, but it gives you like a rudder, a kind of direction to say something doesn't look right. Okay, so that's how I formulate my strategy. We had that in other chapters. Okay, always harder to do it and formulate. Now in the implementation, I get all these grand ideas. Remember, I'm a practitioner. So most business people in business, with their PhDs or their doctors in business administration, DBAs, they're basically practitioners if you're in the business field. You have some that write and theories out there, but majority are practitioners. We got to put this into play. Managing forces during the action. How do I make sure they're actually doing what I want and what makes sense? Focus on efficiency, primarily on operational processes. Require special motivation and leadership. And I've been through a lot of in the corporate, even with some of the smaller businesses. How do I turn the culture around? Easier said than done. Trust me. Okay. Now, your annual objectives must be clear. So now you come up with a strategy, and you have to, from the top down, whether you like it, it's the pyramid, inverted. You still have people from the bottom up giving that information. Now you're going top down. How do I implement this? Basis for allocating resources. I got to have money. Primary mechanism for evaluating managers. Yeah, part of your goals you're going to find out is tied into this, that you are on the board, on the, what do you call it, on the train, for lack of better words. You're saying, oh, this is a stupid idea, it's not going to be here. That's not what I want to hear. You're out the door. I don't need that. I need someone saying, a champion. You've had your part of the processes. You may not get everything you want, but now you have to bring this up for the organization. That's what you're hired for, as a manager or leader. Establish organizational, divisional, and department priorities. Remember, it trickles down. How do I do it? My department head, I may not be a district manager, it might just be a department or for a certain geographic. How do I implement those strategies for mine? And it all works all the way up to make the corporate goal. Okay, and then you've got, this is just a chart we talked about quickly in class, and then often state in terms of profitability, market share, the business segment. Hey, we're doing this to expand. That means you have more promotional, geographic. Our customers want this, or changing demographics, because through our external, what do you call it? I want to say focus, or external monitoring, that we find out, hey, we have to change, our demographics change, or this area is more is profitable now, it wasn't before 5 years ago, so we're going to go into this area, another market. Okay, you need clear policies. Now, what do policies do? Policies generally, policies are specific guidelines, methods, procedures established to support and encourage work. Here's my procedure. It's my fallback. What does our procedure say we have to do? Boom, boom, boom. All right? And usually it's your old procedures, and with a modification when you're doing any kind of reorganization or re-engineering. Instrument for strategy implementation. Firms' directions not occur automatically. Day-to-day policies are needed to make it happen. Who do you report? So your policies, that's basically your rules, terms and condition in a business, for lack of better words. Set boundaries, constraints, and limits. How far should I go? What could I do? Kinds of administrative action can be taken to reward or sanction behavior. That's, in other words, to punish. Okay. But I want more to reward. So there's a bonus. There's something in for it for me. Okay. Those of you who have ever been on a reorganization or re-engineering, a lot of times I reorganize or eliminate my own position, but there's a guarantee you're on this, you're always going to have a position with the organization. Otherwise, why do it? I'm going to get myself a job, and now I'm on an unemployment line. Give me a break, dude. Or do this. Okay. I don't know if that's a word. I just made it up. All right. As your PhD, you can make up. They say you could come up with new terms and language into it. I'm just teasing you. I just want to have some fun with this class, so it's not so dry. Okay. Set boundaries. Okay. Employees, management knows what's expected of them. Okay. Basis for managerial control allows coordination across units. Reduce the amount of time manager spends making the decision. That's why all these policies. I don't have to. What it is, you have most of the decisions. If you have standard policies and procedures, you know what to do. The ones that really make your manager a good manager or leader is those that are outside. We don't have a procedure. Like if you drive your car and a oil light goes on, you better pull over. You probably ain't got no oil. You don't have any oil, or you're overheating. You better pull over, because you're going to burn. You're going to seize the motor. So those are really quick. You know what to do in those kind of situations. A lot of the decisions you're making when you're doing reorganization, bringing new strategy, you have to change, and the strategy, the mission does not change. Your implementation, how do I change it? What do I have to do a little bit differently to bring in this group of people to buy into this? Especially if you have a union, how do I bring them into it? And a lot of times you have union members also included. Remember, I also came out of the union, Electrical Brotherhood of Electricians. I'm in 2 associations at the colleges that I teach. So I understand the union. I'm not bad mouthing the union, but it's got its negatives and it's got its positives. And a lot of the negatives was that I like to do above and beyond. In the union, if not being paid, you're limited. That's just my own perception. I mean, you may agree with me, you may not agree with me, but that's part of the learning process. I'm giving you both sides. Been on both sides, I understand that. Okay? Okay, promote and delegation of decision to appropriate managers. You have to be able to, at different stages, allow those managers to make modification. As long as they bring it up to the higher level, so we could change the whole process. Because remember, a lot of times when you're doing an implementation, especially a large company, you have different divisions, and sometimes you have to tweak in that division because it doesn't make sense, like in the northern division versus the southern division, because of the demographics, the works, the locations, the equipment, different procedures, everything else. We adapt to our external environment is basically what our internal environment becomes. Those are the successful companies. Clarify what can and cannot be done. Those are your procedures. Okay. Now, types of resources you're going to have. You're going to have financial, physical, human, technological, and resource allocation. Central management makes sure that I have the individual. A lot of times when I was on these reorganization committees, the companies reorganize every 3, 4, or 5 years. Get used to it. Once you've been through one, okay, now we go. It's not that you get rid of the old process, you make it better. You see what I mean? As I get older, I can't do what I used to do when I'm younger, but I use my head, or I hire out somebody else to do those tasks that I'm no longer. I could probably do them, but why do them? I've got the money now, I've got the financial. So you're going to have to allocate individuals. Certain individuals are selected, and now you have to look at their goals because they're basically doing two systems at the same time: the new and then the old. And then so you have to make sure that they have the resources and the financial abilities to complete both. Okay. Now, this is a hard one. How do I manage conflict? Now, this one here, when you look at conflict, and conflict could be internal. Usually, the middle managers, after a while, they either on board or they leave the organization because they got the skill set and they'll go someplace else. Most of your employees are stuck with you. And when I'm saying stuck with you, they don't want to leave. They like it here. It's close to home. Whatever rationale, you know what I mean. And they're good employees. I don't want to get rid of them because that's basically what makes the culture of the company. The company's successful for my employees that know their job. I'm just trying to teach them a different way of teaching this job. Okay, so you have to know, how do I manage conflict? Disagreement between two or more people, general idea, and that could be between them and the new processes coming in. So you have meetings. You go out there, and I used to do, and here's the new phase that's going to affect your department. And even though here's how you fit with the total, but here's how it's going to affect me. Everyone, here's the company's going, how it's going to affect me, my everyday worker. So you have to explain to them, you're going to have a job, you're going to have new equipment, you're going to have, whatever, I'm going to go into that. So, okay, have different expectations, have different schedules and personalities incompatible. Misunderstandings occur between the line and staff. Line are basically the managers, and staff are the people who work under them. Okay, so you've got one way of doing. So you have different way: avoidance, actions of as ignoring the problems in hopes that conflict will resolve yourself. So, man, hey, okay, just deal with it. What the hell? You can't change it. That's not how you do it, but some managers do it, and sometimes you have to let it. Maybe it's something minor; it will resolve. Don't jump on everything. Try to get on the larger ones. Okay, diffusions and basically playing down differences between conflicting parties while extenuating similarities in common. You have two parties that don't agree, kind of find a common denominator, for lack of a better word. Hey, throw a little bit of math in there, okay? Okay, confrontation. Now, this one here, changing members, conflicting parties, each can gain appreciation of the other's point of view. They still don't like it, but they're going to go along with it and say, okay, I'll give it a try. You got to monitor those. Remember, different manager. When you come in with strategic plans and changing organization, moving it forward, it's a different type of a manager. You got to have the theory X and theory Y manager. When to use the theory X, you do this my way, I don't give a darn, or the theory Y, participate majority of the time. But you have that manager that knows which ones to work and how to adjust quickly the communication, the narrative to get their group going forward. Different types of, got to have people skills, for lack of better words. Okay, and here's some trade-offs. Just a table, layoff. Da, 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 da. All right, we discussed that in class. Not going to go too much. Okay, matching the structure. Structure largely dictates how objectives are met. Makes sense. And policies will be established, and you're establishing some of those policies. New organization, who to report to, what are procedures, and a lot of them stay. You just have to tweak it, the linkage. It's not that much. It's a lot of work. You just got to make sure that all of them are in line with the new objectives of the organization. Remember, because that's what keeps people on autopilot, for lack of a better word. Symptoms of ineffective organizations. Okay, too many levels of management. A lot of companies are flatter. because of distortions. It takes too long to change anything. Many meetings held, attended by too many people. Just give me the key individuals and let, because if you have everyone involved in a meeting, they're not productive. You still got a business to run. So you just bring the key individuals. It doesn't have to be the manager, it's the key person. If I'm doing something with the finance, I bring the financial clerk in there in part of the discussion, not the manager, because he or she just knows how it fits in, but they know how the work is done. So they could work back to their individuals or talk to the group that has more trust. When you find out more trust is, the closer the manager is with the workforce, the more you trust them. So your first line and middle managers are still very interactive with your workforce, so they have a bigger trust. The employees, when the vice president or president comes in and talk, you only see them once in a while, and they're afraid they're going to lose their job. Who is this guy? You know what I mean? They're not as open. Okay, and that's where you as a manager should speak for your team, saying, there's some questions out in here, because they may not be able to say it, but you are the one that's your leader. You represent your team, and you bring in those comments on it. Remember, different types of leader. Too large of a span to control, you controlling too many people. Remember, they say, manager, I might have had 400 employees, but I basically had 15, which, for 10 to 15, span because of direct reports, and they had 10 and 15, and they had 10 and 15. That's how man, and 30. Once it's something that's you have a better trained workforce, your span of control could be a little bit more narrow, or a wider span of control. Okay, losing ground to rival firms, declining corporate business performance. Remember, you're doing two at the same time. When Walmart, and look at Walmart, when you went to shop at Walmart, you're remodeling all the stores, make them a little bit wider, more up to date, modern, to be more competitive with Target or some of the other stores popping up there. There's a dysfunction. Those managers had to have the new and the old. Menards and Home Depot, they all do that. So how do you manage that? People that can, I used to be here, now it's over here. I can't find this. I got to walk around. I want to come in here, all this. Okay, but yeah, so your sales are going to be down. You're going to understand that. So how do you anticipate that to keep to bring it up as quickly as possible, to bring it up there? Okay, now the functional structure. When you look at functionals, you're looking at real general. Mostly wide use functional, centralized, simplest in life, least expensive. Okay, so you go by groups such as production, operations, marketing, finance, accounting, research. Okay, some of the advantages: simple, inexpensive. Okay, capitalizes on specialization of product activity, minimizes the need for elaborate control system, allows for rapid decision making. Okay, so this is what I'm looking. When I'm looking at different departments, they know it. Some of the disadvantages: accountability for student for top. Accountability for top management, delegation of authority, responsibility not encourage, minimizes. I must have typed something in wrong there. Sorry. Review. Check it up there. I did that on purpose so you could basically read the book. What did he meant by that one? Maybe on the test, Dr. George. Remember? That's my disclaimer. Okay, low employee and management around. Okay, inadequate planning for products and markets leads to short-term narrow thinking. Remember, different departments. I'm going to work on my department. I forget I'm in a hole. Leads to communication problems. Okay? Now, the next one is divisional structure. General information, you break it up by divisions, profit center, business units, and we talked about that. Bring it up here because my picture's in here. Okay, some of the advantages: clear accountability. Remember, this one here is we're looking at division. Allows control of local situations. You control everything, the sales, marketing, in your division. Instead of having different departments, you have the division head, so you're more reluctant, for lack of better words, or more encouraged to satisfy your divisional manager, and he or she from your division rolls up to the corporate. Okay, creates career development chances, promotes delegation of authority within a certain division, allows easily adding new products to regions because the division is there. I could just try it here in one division and move it to the next division to see what works there and make some modifications and bring it in. Allows strict control, attention to products or customers within the region. Again, you're always looking at the internal and external forces. External forces, what guides the organization for those that are going to be successful. You can't close your eyes. It's not going to happen. Not going to happen. You have to be aware of the external forces and be able to make adjustments within your organization or your processes. Okay, and some of the disadvantages: It can be costly because you got duplication. You got to have finance, HR, and everything in the division, plus in the corporate. Requires skilled management force. How to, because they're basically, again, they're like a vice president of that division. And a lot of times, some of the divisions are the VPs that have that office. They're not the president, but they're and they're able to take care and satisfy that geographic external forces that's affecting them. Requires elaborate control system. Competition among the division can be intense and dysfunctional. Can lead to limited sharing of ideas because I just want my division to look better. But so your top managers have to be able to work together. What works in one division, hey, this worked over here. Maybe you could work it over here. Maybe I could try it. But you have to be able to share, not just so your goals have to be not only for your divisional goals, but you have to have goals for that level that also looks at the company goals. So I have an incentive. 50% is my division is successful. 50% is my corporate. If I have 90% my division, 10% for my corporate goal. Well, the corporate goals maybe more, but I want something that will encourage me to play nicely with other peers at that level. Okay. Now, strategic business unit, and I'll talk into that, is group of similar division to strategic business unit. Delegates authority and responsibility for each unit. Senior executive reports directly to the chief executive officer, vice president, okay, or president of the company. Can facilitate strategy implementation, coordination between similar divisions, and challenging accountability to distinct business units. And we talked about that indirectly. Okay, so let me go in here. We're doing pretty good. I'm trying to keep this down. Okay, the matrix. Now, the matrix is usually hard. Matrix structure basically has most of the complex of all designs because it depends upon both vertical and horizontal flows of communication. Different departments, different individuals work well. You have different bosses, but you still have the one main person with the chain of command if you learn another chapter. But at the larger level, you have to have a matrix. You're doing strategic management, change the whole company. I have to know what to finance. Could they afford it? I have to know what marketing. I have to know production. Hey, could we make this on time? I have to know HR. Do I have the right individuals? Do you see what I'm talking about? I have to have advertising. How do I put the message out? I have to have my accountants. Where's the money going? How are we going to allocate that? All those individuals or different departments makes the strategic plan to go forward because they're all implemented. So you need to have a matrix structure, but right managers who know how to work in that type of an environment. Okay, for matrix structure to be effective, see what they say. Organization need participative planning and training, clear mutual understanding, roles and responsibility, excellent internal communication, and mutual trust for one manager over the other. And I'm trying to take advantage. At that level, very competitive because they all want to be the big kahuna. I don't know if I can even say that. Male or female, I want to be the president of the organization. So there's a competition, but you still have to know how to play and bring it up there. You play nicely. If you make the president, you'll keep the people who helped you along. Remember, you're always looking for the organization. Your whole mission is, sure, we've got our own personal goals, but the mission is at that level is to make sure the organization is successful. Okay, advantages, clear project objectives, results of their work clearly seen by employees, easy to shut down a project on a matrix if I wanted to, shared functional resources instead of duplication. Some of the disadvantages, requires excellent horizontal flow of communication, costly because it creates more managerial positions, like it or not. I have to have more in there. Violates unity and command principles. Should only have one supervisor. Indirectly, you do. Who you have your loyalty. You have to be. It's a fine. I'm trying to find the word. Been through it. You just get used to it. You just know. Look, it's the politics. If I look at it when you're doing something that's very political, make sure you know who does what. But the way you come across this, if you're doing your job and you say, "Hey, my loyalty is towards this department," even though I've been in other departments, that's who my loyalty is to get this job done. And you focus on the loyalty. Don't worry about, "Hey, you owe me." Forget all that. They know you, George is loyal. He does the job. He goes forward. He doesn't care who's. He upsets a little bit. You do. Use your common sense, but you're more political. Okay. Requires mutual trust. All right. So now the next one is do's and don'ts in developing organizational charge, academic research. One. Why is the CCO a chief operating officer position being deleted in an organization. You don't need that because you got other positions. You know, it's one you're trying to eliminate layers. Okay, typical top management organization. Here you have it. And this spells out the things, you know, chief executive officer, chief financial officer, chief strategy officer, chief information, HR, and you have this one, chief operating. Where was the chief? Oh yeah, chief operating officer, and you know, technology. Do I need one to look at all the operations, or something else that works in here because of competition, or if I'm looking at a chief information officer, will basically get all that data that I'm looking for. Okay, and maintenance officers. What makes sense for your organization? You don't have to get rid of it. These are just suggestions. Okay. Okay, now the next one, strategic operations. You have restructuring. If I look at restructuring, for lack of better words, let me just close this off. Restructuring involves reducing size of firms in terms of number of employees. That's the hardest part. So when you're doing restructuring, you know you're going to eliminate individuals. You look at positions and try to let HR take care of whether to find them another job. I mean, it's hard. I don't want to be cold. Remember, but this is part of when you're doing your strategic plan for this class. You may have to say, I'm going to eliminate this whole group of individuals because it no longer fits into the mission statement. It's harsh, it's reality. If you don't do it, you have baggage that you don't really need. You know what I'm talking about? Because your processes has changed. If I look at IBM right now does not build any computers. They have some things, but they basically outsource everything else. They're basically consulting. So all of their individuals that build computers and that kind of manufacture, they don't no longer utilize. They have to be, hopefully when you outsource it to somebody else, you may bring those employees or kind of have an agreement with the company that they'll pick up some of your key employees because they got the talent and then the understanding and it'll help the processes. But do you see what I mean? That's the hardest part you have to do on that. Because if you don't, the whole company fails, and then everyone fails. You have to. I'll drop that off. But I'm just going to say, just think of that. That's the hardest thing, but it's part of some kind of a reorganization structure. Okay. Primary benefits from structure is cost reduction. You have people doing the same jobs, or somebody that no longer it's easier to just outsource that type of work because it's more cost effective and still gives me the same quality and effectiveness. Re-engineering is not restructuring. I'm basically reconfiguring the jobs. After I restructure, it works out well, but now I got to fine tune it. So I do some re-engineering every now and then. It's not as harsh. People just move along, different titles, different expectations, different goals you have to meet. It looks at cost, quality, and speed. Usually does not affect the organizational chart. Managing resistance to change, decide where and how to produce the goods, and employee stock ownership. Those are all incentives. Okay? Now, managing resistance to change. If I look at this, no one likes change, including myself. I hate change. But I was a change agent. But so you know how to change. You know here's the process. Once I get over the changes inevitable, then I basically, how do I monitor it and make the change so it's as painless as possible? Occur at any level of the strategic plan. Three most commonly used is force to change. That's real easy. Involves giving orders. You will do this. I don't have my commitment. And remember, if you're forcing using coercive measures, you're going to lose your job, do this, you're not going to have people that are going to take the risk, are going to look at everything else. They're going to be, what do you want me to do? Because they're going to be afraid of losing their position. So you don't have that incentive, that motivated, that intrinsic, that I want to do a good job, I'm going to take a risk. And that's only at all levels. Remember, you have to say, hey, we're going to fine tune this, tweak this, let's work this out. Okay, three most commonly used, so you force it. Educative change, there's more than this. These are the most common ones used. Presents information to convince individual people to need a change. We have to change or the company is going to go on. Our customers want more technology. I went to my doctor for my wife. We went in there, and he's got this chart, and my grandson was in there, and it's basically a big eye tablet, and you could have the brain, it shows all the veins. You have, if your hand broke, they have for a kid, and it's very interactive. Now, he used to be able to just talk to you, and you'll, yeah, I understand. Now he shows you a picture. Now you're using the visual, makes it easier. And he's going, I'm not sure how to use this. He's playing around. They put it in here, I mean, it sounded good. And my grandson, oh, hit the X here. He's moving on. Oh, gee, how you know? Because the kid is sharp. That's my grandson. I'm just throwing it because they're used to the technology. They're not intimidated. Where he, even though he's got the knowledge, but he's how do I do this? Once he knows how it's intuitive, this is perfect. I could explain it to people, show it to kids, show it everywhere. You had boys, kids, girls, everything else, certain parts of the body. I already thought it was interesting. I was playing around before he came in. You got to wait in the office. So let's play with the game here. Okay. Self-interest, change strategy, convince individuals changes to their personal advantages. Okay, now when I'm looking this all this is strategy, now how do I make this strategic to happen? The next 7 things we're going to be talking about. How do I implement strategy that is an effective and efficient strategy? The next one is linking performance to pay. Like it or not, decision on salary increases, merit pay, bonuses need to support. You brought the new process up to here. It's running 90% effectively. You reduce your customer complaints. You're already in. You're no longer on the old process, and you've got a bonus or pay involved. Not only you as a manager, your team and individuals. Gaining share bonus systems could be used. Okay. The next one is balancing work life with home life. Like it or not, this is the hardest one. Competitive advantages of the firms, because especially doing a reorganization or a new structure, you're spending so much time at work, you forget your family. That's why a lot of people, they'll come home. Like I'm working out of my office at home, which works out perfect. I can still come in there, I'm recording, I'm doing this, but I have that flexibility. I'm balancing. My job, those who own your own business, what do? You're balancing home and life. Home's there, but you still spend time with the kids or your family or loved ones to do what you like. But you always work is always in there, so it's intertwined. But make sure you have that balance. 50-50, yeah, usually 60-40% for home. Come on. You have to spend a little more time. Because remember, if you're not successful at work, your home life is affected. You can't buy the things, you can't do what you're doing. Okay, offers benefits such as, so some of the benefits balancing, you understand, you have elder care assistants. You have people that you are helping, and you can't spend that much time at office because of flexible scheduling. I could, you have both working families, right? So what happens? The husband or the other partner, you got to look at society. There's marriages there, but a lot of people are just living together. That's just society. I'm not out here looking at this. I'm a manager, so or my domestic partner, for lack of better words. Okay, that doesn't mean you have to be domestic partners. We're not married, but we have a relationship, just like in a marriage, only not a formal agreement. After 7 years, I think it's common law, or whatever. Okay, but if I'm looking at this, I'm just throwing that out. Updates. Okay, let me just turn this off. All right. So what you do? One of your partners or your husband or your wife basically does the morning, drops off the kids, and then because I have a later start, and then my other better half, for lack of better words, he or she does the picks them up because they start earlier, so they could pick them up earlier. Do you see what I mean? So the schedule works, so it's flexible. Employee helpline, adoption benefits. A lot of people want to adopt a kid because maybe they waited too long in life or can't have children, which is fine. There's a lot of kids out there that are out there. What I mean. They need a family and love, and so I'll help them along to balance it. Okay, pet care. Some people, their pets are more than their kids. So they have some kind of daycare for pets. Hey, lawn service will do your grass and everything else. I like cutting the grass and everything else. It gets away from the pressure. I just drive around, don't have to worry about hitting anything, looking into my own world, have my headphones. It's a stress releaser for me. Other people, no, I don't like to do work, get my hands dirty. All right, but they offer you. Okay, that's how some of the things balancing. Okay, diversify the workforce. More women minorities, like it or not, you have to be diversified to reflect your external environment where you're doing your business with. Plus, you don't get any lawsuits. Insights, opinions, perspective, a different way of looking at things. You have people from China and Japan coming here to the U.S., taking classes to figure out where do Americans come up with your creativity. We're diverse. You name it, we've got it. Short, long, Christians, Jewish, Muslims, different religions, different ethnicity, from one spectrum to the other. You have different social classes, different ideas. You name it, we have it. In the city, out of city, suburbs, farmland, name it, it's all here. You get different ways of looking at things. different ways of thinking, different ways of solving problems. And now you have these groups. Once you figure out how they work together, because it's like a family, you know what I mean? If you look at the present administration, you say, oh, they've got discourse. They're always fighting. They're always, President Trump's always firing. That's business. Doesn't work out, let's change it. Let's change it. Until you get that right team, remember? He's coming in, doing something he's not used to. Give the man a chance. That's the way I look at it. Remember, whether you like Trump or not, the way I always look at it, what could I get out of it? I'm a business class. What could I get out of it? Whether I don't want to get anything out of it, where he's in here for the next couple of years, maybe the second term. Okay, so I got a plan. He's all less rules, less that. Okay, so let me spend it. That's my strategic plan. Remember, I'm a business owner, or even if you're not a business owner, what could I get out of the administration that's here? What are the rules? What should I stay out of? What should I stay clear? And I'll be fine. We're survivalists, most of us. We look at the external, we look at the internal, and we try to find that balance. Okay? Okay, diverse workforce, committed to non-discrimination, workforce mirrors customer base. We talked about that. Brand loyalty, design. It's nothing about. If I'm in an area that's predominantly African American, I expect to have more managers African American. Not that I'm discriminatory, because that's where they feel more comfortable. If I'm in the area that's predominantly Russian, not so Russian, LG, or Polish people, Polish, anything in that European, our language is fairly close. I can understand some Russian, not precise because I speak Polish, but some of the words. So I would rather have more Polish people. They're talking to them in their language, or if I have more Hispanics in that area. You know what I'm talking about? So it works out well because they feel comfortable. So should be a reflection of my external arena, for lack of better words, where I'm satisfying my customer needs because they can relate to them. Plus, I understand their culture to the people because they're their culture. Look, I don't understand how an African American thing. Even though I grew up in the city, I understand a lot of stuff. The school I went to was predominantly Hispanic, and 20-30% African American, maybe about 15% Caucasian, poor white people like myself. All right, so I understand the different culture, but it's still different. I may understand it because I grew up in the culture, but once I moved out, people don't understand. Oh, you don't. You're Caucasian. You've got this. They look at me differently, for lack of better words. I'm not trying to say it's right or wrong. All right, I'm not getting. But you have to be aware. So when I bring different cultures into my team, I understand how they're thinking. Not only how they're thinking, what's representation. Remember, there's still individuals within the culture. They're not all the same. Not stereotyping. I'm generalizing. They understand the culture a little bit better. Same thing with women. They understand their issues. I may understand them. I think I understand them, but you know what I mean? I've never given birth, so I don't know what the pain is. I had kidney stones, and he said it's almost as close, so that's very painful. You know what I'm talking about? But I don't have any joy passing a kidney stone where you have a joy having a baby. I just threw that in there. All right, so it works out well to have a diverse workforce. Yeah, and then you don't have to worry about, for lack of better words, having a government force affirmative action on you. It's a good representation. It's good business, good social. It's a good business model. Okay, women and minorities represent a huge additional pool of qualified applicants. If you're looking at college degrees and everything else, more women are getting college degrees than men. They're more educated. They control more of the finance. They control all the money. Bring them in. They got a different way. They're more of a participative type of managers. They work well. Hey, not all. Come on, man. I'm not stereotyping, generalizing. Okay, diverse workforce strengthens firm social responsibility and ethical position. Okay, now number 4, I think the 70s strategy for supportive culture, formal statements of philosophy, charters and creeds. Tell me about the company, right? Used for recruitment. We started off as a little business and worked our way up. There's, CDW's here in Lake County, and he basically started off losing his job, selling computers online. Now it's a big corporation, international. Okay, designing physical spaces, facades, and buildings. What makes it? It's a reflection of the culture. Do I want an open space? Do I want walls? A lot of things are open space. That's good for communication, but it gets noisy. Some people need quiet. All right, so it depends on the organization. Okay, deliberating, role modeling, teaching, coaching by leaders, explicit reward and status system for promotion. You know how you promote as long as you're meeting the goals all tied in. Stories and legends and myths and parables about your organization, about key people and events. What leaders pay attention to, measure and control. Leader reaction to critical incidents. organizational systems and procedures. Come on, all right? How organizations design and structures. All this is important. These are actually the list that's at the end. This is how do you create that supportive culture. It builds up on one. Now, the other one here is monitoring social media. Monitor employees' social activities. Company's reputation in marketplace. Real easy can easily be damaged by disgruntled employees venting on social media. Walmart had that. Where they said we're not getting paid enough, and some people are upset, and a lot of people were going, "Oh, we don't want to go to Walmart. They're not taking care of their members." They were doing pretty good if you really look overall. Why do you go to Walmart? You don't go for the high prices. You go to like it's the lowest prices but the higher quality. That's what you pay for. If you're going to get the lowest prices, you're not going to get all the thrills. And your employees, remember, the employees are the largest resource that you have to pay out of most company. They're the strongest resource, also the most. That's what makes your companies your employees. Very important, very critical. Don't mess them up. They make the company. They come up with the ideas. But then you have to find that balance to pay them properly. But what's your mission? Lowest prices. So maybe I don't need as many employees. Raise it up. Maybe you want more. Do you see how there's a balance strategically? If you're going to be cutting employees, make sure you cut out employees that don't have an effect dealing with the customer verbatim. That's usually what the good rule of thumb. Those who connect with the employees, you want employees working for the company because they put the company's benefit first, because they basically, if the company goes under, they're out of a job. Contract, say, I just contract out with a competitor once I understand the processes. Okay? Social media records can be subpoenaed, emailed, using evidence. And again, social media, also when you have I'll leave it at that. Okay, a corporate wellness program is Affordable Care Act is on and going. Who knows? You know what I mean? Maximum incentives and penalties. You know, a lot of companies, smaller than medium, basically would rather pay the penalties because it still costs them less. I'm not saying that's ethical. I'm a company looking for survival. If I'm just barely making it, I have to keep the cost. Same thing with a younger individual. Why should I pay for insurance? I don't need it. Never get sick. I don't have the money right now, and you're paying. I got to pay a penalty for something that I don't want. Takes away from that. I understand that. There's a whole bit of debate on that. I'll let that happen. But in the next 2 years, you have to look at it. So you still have it here. How much going to change? So this one's going to be like, it's going to be action and objectives in the working, depending on what the administration is going to change, what's going to change. As usually you'll have 1 quarter, 1 year, but the next year to make the adjustments, just like you do with all the rules and procedures. Some are done right away, and you may have to readjust your processes or restructure. Remember? Or not restructure, re-engineer. Restructure means I'm changing everything around. Re-engineering, I tweak it a little bit. Most companies have carrots, and basically, such as giving employees discounts on insurance premiums or even extra cash or sticks, imposing surcharges and premiums for those who do not make process towards getting helping. Okay, and your social media, you say no smoking, never smoke. I got a lower, and then they see you puffing away in a cigarette or drinking and having a ball. I'm not gonna say, could it affect you? I'm not sure, but I'm not naive. Okay, remember, you have it, you come up. And the last one is using the caution in hiring rival employees. Lawsuits from rival employees, non-compete agreements, secret forms, customer list, all right, company's image about stealing talent. That's the negative. The other thing you have to look at, if I bring in an employee from my rival, and he or she's a good employee, and they terminate whatever for whatever reason just to get along with the management because they're going through some reorganization and they don't like the new process. I bring him in there, him or her, good employee. The culture kind of mirrors my culture. I'd pick him up, pay him a little bit more. My learning curve real short. All he has to do is learn. I'm not looking about taking this customer. Yeah, that may come indirectly, but I'm basically looking at his learning curve or her learning curve. Pay him a little bit more. They're already up and running. They just have to understand my product and my procedures, and we'll be doing well. Okay, I think I covered everything. Let me just do real quickly here before I forget. View, bring this down to 100. We had a lot in here. I think this is going to be about an hour, so I'm going to expand. Okay, so we covered all this. I'm not gonna just move it over to the side here because I think I'm right in here. Everything we covered, annual objectives, everything you gotta need. So this all here is how do I implement it, right? Strategies, everything else. Remember, coming up with the ideas, the easy part, making it happen. How are you gonna do it? managers, communication, different type of managers, ones that are more of a people skill, and one that basically doesn't follow the procedures. All I mean, understands the procedure, but those are just how to maintain everyday a workflow. How does he or she work outside the box and make sure they make this happen? Remember, I got a template, but I got to do adjustments for the regions or everything else. Again, my name is Dr. George Mochocki. This is strategic management, and we're doing implementing strategies, chapter 7. And let's see how much I did. 48 minutes. I'm underneath an hour. Again, I'll see you in the next chapter. And I enjoy talking to you. And remember, sign up at your local community college if you're not the college that I'm teaching at. And if the video is helpful, goodness, I do a lot of these videos and teaching to pay off my student loans. Hopefully, the new administration will look favorably at us older baby boomers. Okay? Here's what happened with the student loan. Everything else that's going on is we went through the economic downturn. That hurt a lot of individuals for your how to get out of the debt on that, like it or not. And then, so it just happens. So strategically, what you're learning here, how do I strategically plan my own career objectives for the next 5 years? What you're learning here, same thing you have to do for your own personal skill set. So you may look for a company that's changing, or maybe that'd be a good opportunity to lead that organization and spin off on your own. Okay? All right, I'll talk to you later. And I'm at